My name is David Baker. I'm with CenterPoint Energy. At this time, we'd like to provide a little presentation about, I guess, really our electrical restoration plan, some electrical safety tips on what to do if we do have a hurricane. Of course, power being out has been a recurring theme throughout the speeches that have been going on. And one thing we do ask, we have an emergency plan, and we do ask everybody to come up with a plan for themselves, because if we have a severe storm or hurricane, and it always depends on how strong it is and where it hits, but there's a pretty good opportunity that you will be without power for some point of time. During Hurricane Ike, we have approximately 2.3 million customers. 2.1 million people did have an outage right after the storm passed. Just a little bit more about CenterPoint Energy, because at times there's still some confusion about CenterPoint Energy, Reliant Energy, who's who does what. CenterPoint Energy is just an energy delivery company. We cover the Houston area, 5,000 square mile electric service territory. Really goes all the way from Sealy to Old River, Winfrey out east, from Galveston, Freeport area south, north up to even parts of the Woodlands. Serve, like I said, over 2 million electric customers. And what we do is deliver electricity. We own and maintain the power lines, the poles, and deliver electricity, and then we restore service. We also serve over 1 million natural gas customers in the Houston area. You do get a bill for gas from us. And we do not generate or sell electricity. That's all part of a change when deregulation of the electric utility industry in Texas started in 2002. Again, we're responsible for restoring service. No matter what company you buy your electricity from, we are the only company that can restore service during power outages. And our trained crews will work day and night to get you up and running after a storm. We do bring in mutual assistance crews and contractors that work for us, so you will see some people who are not CenterPoint Energy working after a storm, but they are working directly for us. And also, we prepare for outages before they happen by investing in technology to more quickly and accurately pinpoint problems. I'm sure everybody's seen a lot of the advertisements or some information about Energy Insight, which is the smart meters and the intelligent grid. And that is infrastructure being deployed now to help us get quicker at both service items and restoration activities. How can you prepare for an approaching hurricane, and what would happen afterwards? A few things from electric service tips on what to do prior to a storm hitting. One, unplug sensitive electrical appliances such as computers and TVs. You will have what we call circuit operations. I'm going to call it blinking of lights. This can happen even during just a thunderstorm, but it will definitely happen when a hurricane is coming in. And that is the lights blink when we have lightning hitting the line or trees getting into the line. It's a protective type of operation, but when the lights blink a lot, that can cause issues with your air conditioners, refrigerators, things like that. So if you get into a period like that, it's a good idea to turn off your air conditioner. Maybe even unplug your refrigerator. If you do expect flooding, if you're one of the areas it's been talked about having to evacuate, potential with storm surge, it's a good idea to turn off the electricity at your circuit breaker, just hitting that main breaker. And again, if someone depends on electricity for life-sustaining equipment, really need to make arrangements for them in advance. 2.1 out of 2.3 million people lost power during Ike. So it's not really a matter of if, but it probably will happen. A few natural gas service tips, since we're also in the natural gas business. Gas is one thing you do not want to turn off at the meter. If you do that, the piping is not pressurized anymore, and if you do have some flooding or something, then water will get into your piping and cause problems when you do try and get your gas service restored. And if you do choose to try and do something with turning off your natural gas, the best thing to do is go turn it off at each appliance. There should be a stop valve at each appliance, and that would be the best way to do that. How long should you prepare to be without power after a hurricane? These are just some general guidelines for the category of storm and how long. And again, so much depends, how much damage will occur, will impact the restoration of power to the entire area, and that's really dependent on the strength of the storm and where the storm hits. And these are really worst case scenarios for the category storms with taking a direct hit here in the Houston area. During Ike, it took us 18 days to get everybody back on. And generally our rule of thumb, which we tell everybody, is be prepared for at least 2 weeks. Of course, some people, I heard, I believe it was Frank Billings, said his power had never gone out, but I know my parents, because I heard from them quite often, they were out for almost 2 weeks. So, like I said, remember, no two storms are alike. The damage to the electric system will be different, and it's really not possible for us to forecast in advance what damage to expect to our system or really individual locations. So much of it depends on what happens with trees in areas, all the factors like that. Again, we have over 100 years experience. I mentioned before, we are not do not sell electricity. We don't generate electricity, but our history was we were Houston Lighting and Power, HL&P at one time. So we have over 100 years of experience. We have been in the community for a long time. The goal of our Emergency Operations Plan, our EOP, is to safely restore service to our customers quickly and efficiently. Our plan is really generated at trying to get the most number of people on in the shortest period of time. And again, in addition to linemen and local contractors, our emergency plan includes virtually every employee that we have in Houston. Even those that don't traditionally work in the field, they will be outside being crew spokespersons to try and provide information to people so that they're not having to stop our crews restoring service. We enlist just about everybody in any kind of effort we can. We also have mutual assistance programs with other utilities. And all the utilities do this. And if you have an emergency that happens, no utility is able to handle the emergency by themselves. So all the utilities have mutual assistance agreements. And we go all over the country and help people out at times, just like they come here. During Ike, we had people from all over the country, even from Canada, come in and help us restore service. We had over 11,000 extra people come in. And one of the items you can tell when you have an extra 11,000 people is trying to provide lodging, food, fuel, supplies, and equipment. So we set up a lot of staging areas to provide this type of infrastructure so that people can work. Just a little bit of, I may use a few terms just to familiarize you a little bit with what the terms I'm using. You have the power plant, then it kind of shows the transmission lines, and those are those real, the steel towers that are very tall. That's a very high voltage line, anywhere from 138,000 to 345,000 volts. Then that is stepped down into our substations. And from there it's put out on the wood poles, which you see, and that's voltage that's stepped down to either 12,000 or 35,000 volts. Both are very dangerous and always stay away from power lines. And from the pole you have the transformer, and then that drops, it usually has an overhead drop, or if you live in a subdivision that has the underground feed, has a cable that runs underground over to your meter. What we try and do is really make sure our transmission infrastructure is up immediately after storm, because if we don't have that, we can't get the power into the substations. We work on our main circuits after that. Just again, another depiction here with, people see these all the time, the wood poles with the wire on the top of the pole. That's our circuits. And then you have a transformer, and then the drop, the service drop, goes through your house to the weatherhead. One good thing after a storm, which you can do to ensure power is restored as fast as possible, is that weatherhead that attaches to the meter and comes up, that would be equipment that the homeowner is responsible to ensure is ready for service. And what happens a lot of times, if a tree falls and it catches that drop, it might pull that weatherhead down. And then when we come through to restore power, if that weatherhead's down, we can't connect you. So that's one thing that's always good to check out at home. See if your weatherhead's up and still functioning. And if not, you need to call a licensed electrician and get that fixed so that when we come through, we can reattach the line. Again, I mentioned a little bit before about our power restoration, our emergency plan. We have restoration priorities. The first thing we try and do is restore service to key public safety, health, and welfare facilities. And what would be included in this is, hospitals, the cities have emergency operations centers, we have large water plants and sewage facilities, and these all are things which you really need operating so the city, as it gets power back, can function. So we will work on essential public services first, and it says second on here, but really in conjunction with that is we work on what we call our circuits, which is the backbone. If we don't have our main lines up and repaired, then we can't get the power off the smaller lines that go into subdivisions. And really the first few days what we try and do is not a whole lot of getting poles back up, but switching and isolating where the problems are so that we can get as many people back on as fast as possible. After we get these major circuits, the next step is we move into the smaller outages and subdivisions, and then finally, last would be the homes where it's just one or two people. And unfortunately, if you're sitting there and you're one of only one or two homes that's out and everybody else has power, it may be a while before we get to you because, again, the plan is going to try and get those blocks of 1,000 people back on before we start getting one or two people, or it would take us a really, really long time to get everybody back on. Because typically when we have to replace poles or transformers, that's more than just a 10 or 15-minute job. That can be 4 hours to over a day. Again, I talked about this earlier, the electrical weatherhead, a little bit better picture of that, but that's one thing that you will need to check on just to make sure is all up and ready to accept power. And a question I get a lot, why is it taking so long, or why do the people on the other side of the street have power and I don't? A little bit of a depiction here on, with the street. I'm going to use 2nd Avenue there as an example. And you can see the power for most houses is fed from the back, whether it's in an overhead line or it's in a wire that is underground in an underground subdivision. The power is in the back of the house. So your neighbor across the street could have lights, but yours is not because the line that's behind your house has had a tree fall into it, a pole go down, or even the underground cable and transformers can have problems. We have areas where you get flooding in backyards, where lightning hits an area and it can destroy a transformer or create problems. So that's why at times you can have power and your neighbor across the street will not.